The frontrunners of both political parties here in the United States are planning a clean sweep of today's 5 primaries. Republican and Democratic voters are heading to the ballot boxes as we speak. Here is a look at early voting in Greenwich, Connecticut, as thrilling as anything we'll be showing you all day long. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, a total of 384 delegates are up for grabs today, despite Hillary Clinton's leads in all 5 states. Bernie Sanders, though, has vowed to fight on regardless of today's results. On the Republican side of things, Donald Trump, meanwhile, prepared to take home many of the 172 delegates at stake. He's also going after his rivals, Ted Cruz and John Kasich, for forming something of an anti-Trump alliance. He says their pact proves how weak and pathetic, his words, they are. Neither Cruz nor Kasich, though, have a practical mathematical path to the nomination. So essentially, they are hoping to deny Trump the delegates he would need on the first ballot to force a contested convention, which could be chaotic in Cleveland come July. In order for Trump, though, to clinch the nomination, he needs 53% of the remaining delegates. John Heilemann is co-managing editor of Bloomberg Politics, good enough to join us now to discuss that which some would have said is just a matter of time with John Kasich and Ted Cruz and the alliance that is now.
The alliance.
The alliance.
Let's just put quote marks around that.
Capital
for
A.
For reasons I'll explain momentarily.
All right. So, well, then explain that, because is this, however effective politically, is this too little too late for them?
Well, it certainly may be too little too late. I mean, in the sense that the horse, the barn door was thrown open. The horse left the barn door.
Quite some
The horse went stampeding. It's covered acres, already. And now, like, people are like, hey, where's the horse? Let's get it back in the barn, So this is all now about the sudden awakening among a lot of people in the Republican Party, and in particular among people who don't want Donald Trump to be the nominee, that if they don't stop Trump in Indiana a week from today, that the race is basically over. Like, people didn't quite get the math and the momentum of what, once Trump, where he was, if he won in New York, he won big in New York, if he wins big, as everyone expects him to in all 5 states today, that he'll then be in a position where, if he goes to Indiana, which is a state that's, now in the middle of the Midwest, competes against Cruz and Kasich, wins there, wins a bunch of delegates there in a state that's winner take all by congressional district, that both momentum-wise, argument-wise, and delegate-wise, he'll be well set up to get to 1,237 delegates. And so now everyone said, well, we have to stop him in Indiana. And literally that realization, and then the Cruz campaign's realization that the way things were shaping up at the polling was that if Kasich stayed in the race effectively, that they were not going to be able to beat him there. So they essentially went to the Kasich campaign and said, look, you're not going to win Indiana. You got to let us try and get this done here and stop him here, and then we can work on where we can stop him down the line. We're happy to get out of a couple of states where you're stronger than we are, but this is all about what happens next Tuesday.
This seems like it has real distinct echoes of Wisconsin, where the Never Trump movement coalesced, if only for a moment, and yet this still feels reactive. And we've heard Donald Trump already respond, and it seems to embolden his argument that this is a rigged system.
Oh, sure. And the great strength of Trump is always that many of the things Trump says that are the headlines are true. So when he says that's a rigged system, it's a rigged system. Openly it's a rigged system. Both systems, Democrat and Republican, are designed to favor establishment candidates. And there's lots of mechanisms built into the system to favor establishment candidates. When he says this is collusion, it's collusion. He's right. That's what they're doing. They're colluding. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, by the way, but that description is correct, So, yeah, the Wisconsin thing is a good parallel, right? And it's a good parallel, and it points out the differences are also important. Cruz basically got Trump one-on-one in Wisconsin, but a couple of other things happened. One of which was the whole state's establishment rallied behind Cruz. The other of which was the state's talk radio establishment rallied behind Cruz. And the third thing was Trump made a couple of horrific mistakes in the week leading up, whether it was on abortion. Corey Lewandowski ended up getting exonerated, sort of, but was arrested that week. Cruz was mocking Trump was mocking Heidi Cruz on Twitter. He alienated a huge number of women in a state where there were a lot of suburban Republican women.
A lot of self-inflicted wounds.
Yes, but all 3 of those things were true. Establishment rallies to Cruz, talk radio rallies to Cruz, and Trump inflicts a lot of wounds on himself. All those things added up to a big victory for Cruz. A couple of those things are not as likely to be true going into Indiana. the other problem is, right, already Kasich, is out saying, well, I don't want anybody not to vote for me. I want my voters to vote for me. And he's going to actually be in Indiana. He's canceled his public schedule, but he's still going to be in Indiana today.
People have been voting absentee in Indiana for some time
right.
now.
And so the question is, you're really talking about if the polling is right, and the internal polling of the campaigns suggests that the public polling is correct, which is that Trump's at about 40, Cruz is about 35, Kasich's at about 20, and 2025. There's a very small pool of undecided vote. And so what the Cruz campaign is basically trying to, what this deal is all about is, if we get Kasich to stop campaigning here, and we get the outside groups that are spending money in the state to focus on helping me, Ted Cruz, and even trashing Kasich if we have to. If we get the money focused in the right way and we get Kasich to stop campaigning here, we can pick up the remaining undecided vote and maybe depress Kasich's numbers just a little bit. And it'll mean we can maybe just barely squeak by and beat Trump in Indiana, and then we live to fight another day. That's all this is about.
But it seems to be also asking a voter in Indiana now to see to see themselves as part of this bigger movement of basically that a voter in Indiana now, you're voting for chaos. You're not voting for a candidate.
It's saying it's saying to the remaining undecided vote and some small number of weak Kasich voters, basically saying, look, this is not, don't make your vote about anything other than stopping Donald Trump. And the only way you're not even voting for really stopping Donald Trump, you're voting for a chance to stop Donald Trump. You're voting for, as you say, you're voting for chaos. You're voting for a contested convention. There were a lot of strategic voters in Wisconsin, it turned out. Very highly, the education level is very high in Wisconsin. There's a sense that there were a lot of voters who were in Wisconsin who cast their vote for Ted Cruz, even though they didn't like Ted Cruz, because people like Scott Walker and others in the state endorsed Cruz, even though they didn't particularly like Ted Cruz. And they basically said, all we're trying to do here is stop Donald Trump. Again, it's still, if they can stop him in Indiana, it's still like a long road, and there's still California, and there's still a bunch of states. Not a long road, it's a short road, but there's still a lot of states to play in. And so even if they manage to pull this off on Tuesday, it's just going to, as I say, it's about living to fight another day. It's not going to accomplish the task, right? Because the hope for Cruz is that then, you get on to South Dakota, Nebraska, and a few of these states that are winner-take-all states where he is strong, and that Kasich can do well enough in Oregon and New Mexico to hold Trump's numbers down. And then you get to California, which is the craziest thing in the world, where you have 53 separate simultaneous elections. Every single congressional district is basically having its own election. Winner take all by congressional district in 53 congressional districts. The Cruz campaign thinks it can win about half of those. Kasich thinks it can win about 10 of those. If that happened, you might just barely be able to hold Trump short of 1237.
So basically right now it's the NCAA tournament. It's surviving and advancing.
That's all it is right now.
Play another day.
But let's just be clear. The alliance is an alliance of utter panic and desperation. It's necessary. It may not work, but it's the only thing they have left.
Quickly on the Democrats. We're now seeing a moment perhaps that you could really see coming, where Bernie Sanders is now perhaps appearing as less a candidate and more an agenda personified. And so he, again, has told everybody who will listen, including our Nancy Cordes, I'll see you in California in June. I'll see you back here in Philadelphia in July. At this point, do the returns begin to diminish for the Democratic Party?
Well, it's a little, look, Sanders has a powerful argument in the sense that he is going, if you look at the size of his rallies, you look at the way in which he's connecting with younger voters in the Democratic coalition or potential members of the Democratic coalition, all these people are going to be voting for the first time, and the money he's created, the fundraising machine that he's built, that his argument, which is that I think that California should have an election. I think Oregon and Washington should have elections. I think we should go there and be able to get our message to those people. That all makes a lot of sense if ultimately then the party comes together and there's unity. I'm always just, in this cycle, you hear a lot of Sanders people trashing the Clinton people trashing the Sanders people. And, people talk about it's been such a bitter primary fight. It's just nothing like as bitter as 2008 was. And what happened in 2008 was, after a really, really bitter, really, really nasty contested primary where you had a lot of Clinton voters who said they'd never vote for Obama, Hillary Clinton eventually had a moment, stopped campaigning after the last contest, dropped out of the race, endorsed Obama, and then slowly, gradually, by the time Denver came, she was on his team. Still with hard feelings and still some bitterness, but she got out there at the convention. She nominated him. She started, you remember what happened there? They started the roll call vote for her. She halted it. She asked her supporters to support Obama. And when it came to the fall, the Clinton voters all supported Obama. That can happen again. This has not been any more bitter than 2008. The question is all about Sanders, because what happens at the end of a thing like this is that the power is all with the loser. The loser is the one who can go to his disappointed followers and say, we must now support this person.
Yeah, make the switch.
I mean, Sanders is now saying it's up to Hillary Clinton. It's really not up to Hillary Clinton. She needs to do things. She needs to say things. She needs to help within the platform. She needs to give him a role at the convention. She'll do all that stuff. But in the end, the question is, Bernie Sanders, does he care about the Democratic Party, which he's never been a member of? Does he really, does he think to himself, I cannot let Donald Trump or Ted Cruz be the president? That's enough for me to throw my supporters to Hillary Clinton? If he acts like Hillary Clinton did in 2008, it'll all be fine for the Democratic Party. If he decides that he doesn't care about the Democratic Party, or that he's on some crazy ego trip, if that's the way he wants to play it, he could sow disunity in the party and cause a huge problem for her. I don't think that's what he's going to do.
Big ifs, certainly grist for your mill.
Grist for my mill. I'm a big fan of grist. And grits, for that matter.
A lot of grist, a lot of grits.
Yeah.
And look what you can do there. Just invert a couple letters. Yeah. John Heilemann. That's the kind of stuff you're getting from John Heilemann. We appreciate it.
Flipping them around.